Hey y'all, welcome to Dirtwater Sass. Here's another episode between A and B, two sisters who get to discuss their journey through childhood, growing up under the same roof with the same parents who were struggled with drug addiction. Today, we're going to talk about or hopefully encourage parents who are struggling with a child who possibly could be addicted to using and what to look for. Um, my sister's going to talk a lot about this, considering she knows she's lived this. She's been that child who came up with all the ways to try to hide it from her parents. And hopefully this is encouraging to you. And at some point, it might be seem discouraging, but the bottom line is it's really really hard to love well through this journey because there's so many different perspectives through this, and I probably have a different perspective than my sister, because I've had to love her and my parents through their addiction journeys, and my perspective is a little bit different. However, um, my sister hopefully can also provide you some encouragement and some things maybe that you won't hear anywhere else, and she's just going to be honest, and she's going to just tell you like it is, and she's not going to hold back. And I'm really excited about this because this seems to be a topic of conversation right now. How parents identify kids that are really struggling. We seem to have an epidemic happening, and it needs to be talked about. So Brooke, I'm excited about this. We talked about this. I actually sent you this kind of idea because of something that I saw on social media, and immediately when we started talking about it, you actually were able to, by the end of our conversation, come to realization something that you never even thought about before. And I
Right.
thought that was really interesting. So I'm excited for us to get started on this. But I know you've been thinking a lot about this since we've been wanting to do this and plan for this podcast. So where are you now, and what are your thoughts?
Okay. I was sitting down and I'm not going to jot on that too long, but thinking about all the things that I went through and just the differences in personality, changes in who you actually are, how you go from being a teenager to an adult. And I guess my number one thing would be just a change in who you are. You don't laugh as much. You don't cut up as much. It's more seclusion. Um, I always look for, in what I'm going through now with one of mine, is just not wanting anything to do with you because they're ashamed of what they're doing. Um, I've got several things on that. Interest in family, interest in friends, certain friends that have always supported you. They were always your best friends, but they, you know, moved in a different direction because you're going in a completely opposite direction. I lost a lot of friends in that. Um, so I'll just start there. I'll start with the things that I think that you should look for in maybe your children. If they can't look you in the eye, something's wrong. Something's wrong. Yeah, and they don't want to talk to
That's with
you.
any I think that's with any drug addict, actually. Anyone that you suspect is using, if they start to avoid you, can't look you in the eye, their behavior's changing, they're not their same person. I think that's for anyone who you suspect is using. So I just want to clarify that. But since we're talking about what parents to look for, that's actually really good to start off with.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely a change in just communicating, talking, simple little things. They don't want to be judged because they know the judgment is going to be there, which every parent should be aware that something is going on. Um, Also, okay, changing friends. I know I just spoke on that just for a second. Changing different people that you surround yourself with. Um, that's one of the biggest ones. When it seems like you're alone, You probably are. And you should pay attention to that. And like I said, the changing crowd is a big one. Uh, Getting upset about small little things, emotions, just a whole change in personality. Um, Hang on, I just gotta, because it's hard for me to kind of talk about this just a little bit. So y'all have to bear with me. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not. Even family, besides friends, it'll be a change in that too. You don't ever want to separate yourself from family. So just be there for them. I just want to say that. They just need help. And since we are on this podcast talking about God and all that so much, which is most important, don't give up on them. They're not a lost soul, they're not a lost hope. It can change. I promise you, it can change.
And
Um,
I'll speak from that point of view at the end of this because I have still been a part of my family's life. I'm still a part of yours and our parents, and so I'll encourage that at the end of the podcast for sure.
yes. And let me say this real quick. Ashley is more on the end of the Al Anon, and I'm more on the end of the AA. And I don't know if you know what Al Anon is, but it's for family members that go through family that has been through addiction. There are actually meetings for family that have been through that because you're as affected as anyone else, and it brings you more aware of what is going on. Not saying that it's going to change anything, but it kind of helps you through it because not only is everybody else traumatized, family members are too because they care and they love about you. Yeah. Um, you can notice a change in them, their eyes. I'll say that. Eyes are the window to the soul. They are. If you can look in your kid's eyes and you see that there's nothing left, and that's what you feel in your heart, um, they're lost. They're lost. Um, and I know this is kind of more physical than emotional or whatever, um, but pupil size does matter. Let me just say that. um, Pay attention to that. Pay attention to pupil size, redness in the eyes, um, just not caring anymore about anything. Cleanliness is a big one.
Yeah.
It is not taking care of yourself, not taking care of your, just say, your, what you have around you, car, rooms, just anything. Um, just not caring about anything at all. Just going about life and living day to day, living dollar by dollar, not saving any money. It's so much. It's so much. You're deeply sensitive, very emotional, like I said, to any reaction. If you bring up, what's going on with you? What's wrong? Are you okay? If they snap, that's that'll tell you something right there.
That's
Defense.
really good. Yeah, that's actually really good. And I just want to stress that's any sin. That's any sin that your teenager may be struggling with, whether it's drugs, sex outside of marriage, pornography,
Yes.
anything that goes against, if they are a believer, if your family has raised your children in God's word and in the church, that's immediately going to be something they get a defensive about. And that is a cue for you. That is a cue for you.
Absolutely. And church will not be in the subject. You steer away because your conscience is killing
Mhm.
you. And I'll tell you, as a former addict, there were so many nights that I cried myself to sleep. It's not that they don't have feelings, but when you're alone,
Mm.
and you're sitting there by yourself, that's when it comes out. So pay attention to those times where you feel like they're secluding themselves. Pay attention to that because that's when they're most vulnerable. That's when they're feeling at their worst. And it's not going to do any good to yell. It's not going to do any good to bring them farther down than they already are.
Mhm.
It's not going to help. If I could suggest anything, it would just be to sit down, have a heart to heart, let them know that you truly care about them and you're worried about them, and let them know that you love them very much because there's really nothing else you can do. But I'll stay on the topic. Signs. Money, just for instance, if they do have a job, if they don't have a job, pay attention to lost items
Mhm.
coming up in your house. That was a big one in my house. Um, Things start coming up missing, even coins, it doesn't matter, jewelry, anything. Pay attention to things popping up missing. Um, I promise it will happen. Lock it up. Lock it up. And a lot of these thoughts that they have in their head that they think nobody loves me. And I know that it's hard for you to understand because you're not an addict. You're not. These delusions that we create in our head, they're not real. They're not
Mm.
real. It's a lot of insecurity. Just pay attention to feeling less than. Like I said, being absent, not ever want to be around. The only time you'll ever see them is on holidays when you get money.
Mm.
Always, everything is a blame game. It's a blame game. It's always somebody's fault. The way that you went through something, or they will never say, you know what, I'm sorry.
Mm.
This is my fault. And I'm sorry I put you through this. You'll never get that. So don't
That is
look.
so good.
Yeah.
I wanna touch on that a little bit because I wanna touch on it a little bit because this is also a sign to look for if someone is really serious about if they're in treatment. If something dramatic happens and they do end up in treatment and they start giving their testimony or their story, and throughout their story, they never apologize.
Right.
That is a sign they will not be clean. They are
That's
not
right.
truly sober because their heart has not been fully brought into redemption and they are still living in it's everybody else's fault. And I witnessed this with my father when I finally put him in treatment. And yeah, great. He was in this home. He maybe wasn't using, but he never fully recovered because he could never say I'm sorry.
Sorry.
And
Yes.
it doesn't matter. And if an addict can never come to full realization of the damage they have done and what they have done, they don't fully want to recover, and they will do it again. They will go back living the same life no matter what. And this is a true sign if an addict is fully in recovery and sober when their testimonies start out with, I ruined so many people's lives. I did so much damage and it breaks my heart and I'm sorry. If a drug addict's testimony does not start that way, they are not in recovery.
Right.
They are not in recovery. And I knew you were in recovery when you started saying I'm sorry, when you started seeking out and wanting to mend relationships and friendships and like doing the hard things, because that being apologetic for your actions and for sin that you caused and damage that you caused is a true sign that you met Jesus. And he brings you to that point because that is true forgiveness from a heavenly Father. And that is when you understand that forgiveness, you want to give it. Like you want to seek that. And that's how you know when an addict is in full recovery. So I just want to add that because that's why we think our dad is in not full recovery, because he's never apologized. Not
Never.
one time
Not
has he
once.
ever apologized.
But I'm
And
sorry.
our mom has actually. There were many times that our mom was brought to her knees and just knowing what she had done. But our father has never, ever gone there. He's never sought forgiveness, ever. So that's why we know he's not fully recovered.
And let me say this too. You can't enable when you notice this behavior. You cannot enable because you're only enabling the addiction. You're not enabling them. You are enabling the addiction. Um, let it go. They call you from jail. Let it go. If they call you while they're in trouble, let it go, because that was the only time that I fully got to understand what was going on with me. And I'm assuring you that is not a place you want your kid to be, but it'll be okay. It'll be okay.
And I think I just want you to talk about, because we talked about this the other day,
Yeah,
where mom and dad messed up, because I feel like a lot of parents don't, I mean, not, we don't sit around and think about like plan A, B, and C if our kids mess up. Like we're kind of, when this happens,
it's just on the
you,
wind.
you
Yeah.
don't know what to do, especially for parents who have never had contact with this issue before in their families, and your kid all of a sudden is dealing with this. They immediately just want to help them in a way that they know, and that's by getting them out of jail or whatever. But it was interesting when we were talking about this and planning for this, that we talked about what mom and dad should have done differently with you when you first got caught. And that was when we discovered, wow, they were just, how they dealt with me. I was never an addict. And we talked about this too. Like there's teenagers who use and who, do parties and all those kind of things. And that was me before I met Jesus, but I was never an addict. Like I never was an addict for sure.
No.
But I did get caught by my parents, and I did get grounded for like a month. And my parents cut me off from all of my friends. And for me, I didn't go back. Like I had another friend that was in church, and I started going to church with her and got really involved and got saved. And my Sunday school teacher, who is now still my best friend, and very involved in my life, like I went that route. And that's all they did. Like they didn't. For you though, they completely took you out of sports and moved you to a different
Took,
school.
took me, yeah, took me out of everything I loved. That was a big one for me. Like I said, don't. There was no conversation. It was just
Mhm.
movement. Um, doing things to take me out of anything that probably could have helped me through the process, maybe. Like I said, I don't want to blame. I don't. But that hurt me more because I love playing soccer. You know that.
Yeah. So your advice would be, yes,
Don't.
maybe parents, you absolutely do need to take them out of the environment that has caused the addiction, but don't remove the things that are positive in their life. If they're playing a sport or something like that, like that was the worst move they could have done because it just caused more rebellion. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't healing, it caused more rebellion. And just think, I mean, we will never know, but just think of what could have happened if they just were like, "No, you can't be around the people that are causing this in your life, but let's push you further into your sports. Let's occupy your time with positive activity." Like, that would have been yeah.
Look, just moving me from one school to another did not change me. There's, it made it worse. So don't remove them from things they love. Just isolate them from, okay, you're grounded. Okay, I'll pick you up, take you to where you have to go, but don't remove me from the one thing that might actually help me understand. That hurt me. I was the captain of my soccer team, and I was pulled from that. It was a disaster after that. A complete disaster. It
Well,
removed
let's
me. Yeah. It,
but what let's talk about what should have happened, because what should have happened up until when they found out was that you had gone through a very traumatic breakup. You had gone through a very traumatic breakup, and I don't think anyone realized how that affected you like so traumatically. Like, and again, I think this is another thing that parents need to realize. There traumatic events in
yes.
young teenagers' lives, like dating someone or something like that, like, you really need to dig into that. Like, don't let that go, because you don't know what happened in that relationship that they're not telling you, which was in your case and why it was so difficult. And all of this could have been avoided if that conversation would have happened and they just not shrugged it off as as if it was just another kind of relationship and you'll get over it kind of
Like
thing.
I'm just a kid. It didn't matter. No, it does matter because I'm not just a kid. You know that it. I think sitting down and talking. That's that number one. Talk to me. If they don't want to, just for instance, with my son, I've had to talk to him. You know, he broke up with his girlfriend because she was out drinking with one of her friends, and he said, "I don't want to have nothing to do with you." And I think that my past had a lot to do with him not wanting to have anything to do with anything like that, which is great, and which I've always prayed for. Um, I've always prayed for that. If you have to take my soul, then give my kids life, whatever you have to do. But I don't want them to live this life. And I do. I think very sensitive. If a child sees, if they're very sensitive, pay attention to that because their feelings get hurt really bad and they run to something to make them feel better. That's what I always did.
And that's really important because that's the difference between me and you. I look at like I'm pretty tough. You can't really kind of shake me. I've always
No,
been that way. Like, whether it's a personality thing, I'm just but I do think that that had a lot to do with, when I got caught with all my friends when I was 14. I do think that made me tougher because all of a sudden my life completely shifted. When you go from being Miss Popular and you're part of the crowd and you're part of the clique, and like that's where you've always kind of been, that's how people know you, and then you were kind of pushed out of that, you kind of had to rebuild and you kind of had to grow a thick skin for that. Like,
yeah,
you kind of, when you start living for Jesus, like you grow a thick skin because you're all of a sudden saying no to things and making boundaries and covenants with the Lord, and you've shifted, but everything you knew beforehand is still there. And so you kind of grow a thick skin, pretty early on. I mean, I guess that has to do with my personality, that I was okay, but I also think I had surrounded myself with a positive sphere of people, because I immediately dove into my Sunday school group and I immediately dove into having a mentor in my life that helped me grow that thick skin, I guess.
well,
So, yeah.
let me tell you, when I went to rehab, the word that they say that addicts hate the most is no. No. You hate to say yes, you're a people pleaser. That's another thing. People pleasing. No is the hardest word for an addict. It's hard for them to say, I don't want to be a part of this. They want to be part of the crowd. They're
Mm.
scared of what people will think. They want to please anybody. It doesn't matter. They just want to please. And that was a big one for me too. On certain extents. Certain extents. It was just
I
hard for
think
me to say no.
I think that's interesting that you say that because when I look back at our mother, and she always talked about being the black sheep, which when you have that feeling, when you feel like one of your parents loves another kid differently or loves them more, or you feel like you're the always the one targeted or whatever, like you develop this mentality like you can't do enough to be the best. You whatever you do, your parent is never going to love you, like whatever. And it doesn't really matter if that's really what a parent is doing or not. It's really what the child feels and what kind of started the root of that problem. And our mom always felt like the black sheep. Whether it was true or not, I don't know. That's not my place to say, but it didn't matter. That's how she felt. And that caused a rebellious spirit because she had already determined in her mind that there was nothing she could do to be good enough. And that mentality is what creates an addict. A lot of the time. I would say majority of the time. And I say that because you also said that. You also told me that you always thought that moms loved me more,
I did.
which I was really shocked by you thinking that because I never had the thought ever in my life. I mean, I honestly can say I've never thought that my parents loved you or me. Like I never struggled with that. Like I was pretty secure in myself, I think, but I never struggled with that mentality for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe because I'm the oldest. But I was kind of shocked that you said that because I never had that feeling before.
Well, I think that a lot of that was um, dad was always at work, mom was always at home most of the time. And I was just a daddy's girl. So I think that was a lot of that. And she felt more insecure because she is an addict. And it's, like I said, sensitivity. Feelings get hurt really bad. Um, I think that's the number one thing to pay attention to. If you think that one kid is more sensitive than other, pay attention to that. Just, a little bit. Because you just want to run to something that makes you feel better. But that will never make you feel better. I'm not saying that. That makes it worse. That's not what I'm saying. Um, just pay attention to those that maybe have insecurities or feel less than, which I was very secure in myself, but it got into the latter years that I just didn't get much attention from mom. I didn't. Um, I don't, I don't know.
I
And I
mean, you
would
got
ask,
attention, but it was negative.
well, hey, wait, yeah. Oh, always. But but let me say this. Whenever I went to jail, who was the first one crying to dad? Mom. Get her out, Mom. Get her out. So I can't fully say that. I think she just emotions were a mild. It's hard to say with her because she had mental illness, and I try to look over that too. But yeah, yeah. For some reason, it did always bother me that mom didn't pay as much attention to me, and I don't know why. I think just because dad got out and practiced sports with me every day, I was more of a tomboy, you
We
know.
both were.
Yeah, sports was my life. That was my life. So when I say don't take away the things um, from a child that they love, because I loved playing sports, and that was ripped out from under me within a day. I mean, it was gone. It was gone. It tore my heart out.
And
Um,
nor did it do anything positive.
no, it did not. Don't take away anything from a child that they love to do. Don't do that. That's literally the worst thing you can do. Um, I just want to um, if you do have a talk with your child, and if you do notice signs of them using or doing anything, take full control because anything can happen. The world is not set up like it used to be. I know that we were going to keep it minimal. I know that. Um, these days are different. Let me say
Yeah.
that. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't want to name any particular because I don't know if I can do that on here, but it's a lot more aggressive than it used to be. Things out on the street are way worse than they used to be. Do whatever you have to do, but don't take away the things they love. Just take control. And if you have a gut feeling that they're doing that, do something. Talk to somebody. I don't, just take full control. You know, as a parent, just
What does
change.
that look like to you? When you say take full control, what does that look like?
What does that look like to me? Okay. Um, I don't, at this point in time, I would take my kid out of school and homeschool them. Um, I would because that's where most of it starts in
Well, what if
schools.
they're an
That's
athlete? What if they're an athlete though?
well, okay. I guess I'll go. I mean, you can't babysit them all the time, but you can let counselors, coaches. My soccer coach, he kept an eye on me after he caught me smoking a cigarette behind the bleachers, big time.
I had the
I
same
lost
soccer
it.
kid.
Yeah, she did. um, I lost an award over that. Let everyone know around you what is in your head and what's going on, that you care about them and you don't want to see them go into that. And as soon as they're out of school, I mean, you can't force anybody to do anything once they're 18. I'm going through it now with one of mine. I can't even contact him. So, I guess you can only do what you can do for much of the part, but if you notice any signs, all you can do is love them, let them know you love them. It's so hard to say what you can do, but I do know the signs. I do.
I
Like I
would
said,
say, yeah, I would say, and it's going to be really hard. It's really hard to be a parent in this situation to do the hard things. But I feel like as soon as you know for sure that they're using drugs, that 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 instance, that first instance needs to be the hardest you will ever love them well. And that looks like this. That looks like taking away all social media, taking away phone, taking away all of that. If you need to contact them, it's with the flip phone. Taking any kind of money source away from them. Like you need to go the hardest the first time. Like don't be the weakest the first time because then you're enabling. You go the hardest the first time. You get
yes,
counseling, you surround them with positive influences, you get them involved even more in something they actually love, whether it's an instrument, whether it's a sport, whether it's what. You go all in filling up their day with anything that has to do with the things that are positive in their life. And maybe that interferes with your life, but you know what? You've been mandated by God to be a parent when he gave you that child. It is a mandate from God. And so you need to be a good steward of being a parent and it's time to go all in the first time.
Make
not the
time.
second, not the third, the first time, the first instance that drug use appears in your kid's life, go all in. Don't wait. That's love. Loving them hard is loving them well. So go all in. And I truly believe that's what my parents did with me. Like, I truly believe that that's what they did. I don't know why it didn't work for my sister. I mean, I do think I didn't get sports taken away. I didn't get those things taken away, but I do believe it makes a difference. So I just, do you have anything else you want to add here? I'm going to
Um,
start to wrap it up.
yeah, we can wrap it up. I just want to say make time. I
Yeah.
know, make time. I know that it's so hard. It is so hard to make time when you have a job and you have duties at home and you have pets, and I know. Just make time. Take them, do something with them, because I promise you that would mean the world. Just to make time for them. Don't let them feel left out. Don't let them feel like you don't care about them because you get mad at them, because you're just a parent, and you're just doing what you're supposed to do. Just make time for them. Um, like I said, just the big things to look for is things coming up missing, change in personality, not loving as much, not talking, trying to avoid conversation. Um, that's when you really need to put the work in, and you really need to start trying.
And I would also add physical changes.
Oh,
The
yeah,
joke
weight loss.
the joke in our family is when Brooke
Shut
was
up.
the skinniest, we knew she was using the most. I mean, you know, and for some teenagers, it could be they no longer are interested in the things that they've always loved. They all of a sudden don't want to be a part of that anymore. They all of a sudden don't want to do the things they have loved in the past. Like,
Exactly.
I mean, so any change in them just out of the blue is a huge sign of not drug use, but drug addiction. And
Addiction.
and addiction just takes over. Again, addiction is a lie from Satan. It He clothes it in, it's going to make you feel better. It's going to be better for you. You no longer have to feel, you no longer have to face it. You no longer have to grow up. You no longer have to take ownership. You no longer have to worry about what other people think. Like, Satan tells you that it's going to give you power. He is the author of lies. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and he's doing it to our young people with drug addiction. I would say number one, he's doing it through identity. Get grounded in identity. Parents, if you have not been involved in church, or have your kids involved in a church that just is so adamant about making sure your kids are clothed in God's identity from the Bible, like, you're already losing. You'll never win the battle. You just never will win the battle of this. And you're always going to be fighting if you don't have your children in a church that teaches them how to be loved by the Lord and to love well, and who their identity is. And the world will give it to them. If you don't provide it for them, the world's going to give it to them. And just knowing too that teaching your kid to forgive, because
Mm, mm-hmm.
that's something that's taught, because it's our sinful nature who wants to blame. And so forgiveness has to be taught.
Blame game.
Forgiveness has to be taught, and that's a big deal. And when they're never taught how to forgive and how to really come face to face with what they've done, they're never going to forgive. They're always going to blame. And that can lead to many, many struggles in life. So this was really good. I think you really were able to really give a lot of advice, good advice to parents who are struggling with this. And again, we are here because we have two different journeys in all of this. And for me, being the only one in the family who has never used a drug, and having to be the one that had to love them through all of this, it was doing the hard things. It was really doing the hard things. I never enabled.
Nope.
I don't think any of them could ever say I enabled any kind of behavior, but I also never left them. It may have looked like I left them, but I was always in the background, making movements, connecting to people, trying to do things that was going to help them in the long run. And at times, they all hated me. At times, they all have stories where they thought I was the devil. But that's loving well, and it's loving hard. And I know my sister can vouch for that.
Wait. Mm-mm. Not for me. Like, stop. I never. Mm-mm. Because I knew that's my security blanket. I never. Mm, Speaking of the word sass, I never sassed my sister because I never asked her for $1, nothing, because I knew I was smart enough to know that she was my go-to.
Even in the middle of your worst.
Never. Yeah.
Never. Like, never.
Never.
And my parents have never asked me for a thing,
Mm-mm.
ever. And I think it's very wise to establish that mindset very early on. And because it works, you know. And I think this is a good spot to put this in because we're still dealing with our dad's drug addiction, even though he's in a treatment facility. I remember when I helped my dad get in this facility, and the director of the facility told me that in 30 plus years, I was the only family member that was still connected to the addict. Think about that. And I get it, right? Because addicts burn bridges. Addicts burn bridges. They exhaust love tanks. They ruin relationships. Like, it's so easy to be there. And I get it. But we're not taught to love well. We're taught to enable, and that eventually burns bridges. And so you have to learn to love well. And loving well is doing very hard things. And that's something we're not taught enough of. So I'm going to wrap us up here and learn to love well, learn to love hard things. And hopefully this has been encouragement to you. Thank you again for joining us. Please like and subscribe. That's how we grow. That's how we get our message out. That's how God uses this journey that He's put us on. So until next time, we'll see you later. Thank you.
Bye.